Everybody said, thank you, Jesus. Football season is back in. Okay, did you miss the part earlier where I said you got to bring some energy today? I don't miss that part. That part's crucial for today. Man, I'm telling you, football just like everything's right in the world when football season is in. I mean, it is. I don't know what it is about life, but everything is right when you're sitting in front of a big screen TV and you got a pigskin thrown around and you got some food on the table and you're watching Alabama kill whoever they're playing. You know what I'm saying? Roll Tide. Yes. Yes, see, that's what I'm talking about. I'm telling you, train them young and they will not depart from what you train them from. I'm pretty sure that's what God meant when he said that. I'm telling you, it's one of those things, man. It does that. I'm super pumped about the whole series, super pumped about football, even in the middle of election season. Come on. With the choices that you got to vote for, it doesn't make it as bad when football season comes in. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not even worried about it because you're worried about football. That's the thing. I'm telling you, it's the saving grace of humanity. It makes the world all good again. So we started this series last week, and Pastor Evan, man, he brought it. He opened it up, didn't he? Come on, did he not do an incredible job? Come on, show him some love. Show him some love. I'm telling you, he did an incredible job. I told him, I said, I watched it this week online. He said, was it bad? I said, no, man, it was good. I liked it. I'm telling you, every time he started this thing out, and he started out with this whole idea of it's a we church, not me church. Right? It's we church, not me church. It's going to take every single one of us to do what God has called us to do. Do you hear me? Are you with me so far? I mean, it's just like a football team. Just like a football team. It takes every single player making a play and being a part of the team to accomplish the win. It's the same thing in church. I mean, it takes every single person in here being a part of the team and making a play. Somebody make a play. Gosh. Somebody make a play, man. That's what we need. Let's just do this thing. Let's get after it. Whatever that we think is impossible is not impossible because we serve a God of the impossible. Come on, somebody. We can overcome anything that we face. I'm telling you, it's one of these halftime locker room pump-up Sundays. I'm telling you, it's exactly what it is. I'm going to take you to a passage of Scripture in just a second. In Joshua chapter 1. So if you got a Bible, you can go there. Joshua chapter 1. That it's the greatest halftime speech that God ever gave anybody. It's awesome. I love it, and I need it. I need it. So we've been in this series, and here's the difference, in my opinion, in the church and in the football team, right? Yeah, I mean, church and Jesus have a lot in common. Like, Jesus created football, so I'm pretty sure that he loves it. And so football and Jesus has a lot in common, but here's the one difference. Here's the one difference in that. When you watch your favorite football team on Saturdays, or if you're like an NFL fan, like on Sunday or Mondays, whatever, whenever your teams play throughout the week. If you watch your teams, if you're sitting there, you're watching the game, kickoff happen, and it just doesn't go how you want to at the beginning. Come on, just like the Alabama game this week. Can we not start out like going? Can we not do well at the beginning of the game? Just one game at the beginning of the game. Let's just do something good. Right? I'm telling you, I'm frustrated, right? And the game kind of starts like that, and you're sitting on the edge of the seat, and you're wondering, you're sitting there, are we even going to be able to win this game? Right? How many of you say that? Are we even going to be able to win? No matter whose team. If you're an Auburn fan, you better have your hand up. I love football season. You can divide a church in a heartbeat, but it's fun all the way across the board. Like, it is stinging fun. So you're sitting there on the edge of your seat, and you're going, man, do we have enough? Can we win this game? Can we take it down? Can we pull it out? Here's the difference between the church that the football team faces. The church never has to wonder if they're going to win at the end of the game. Come on, somebody. You are already victorious. You are already overcomers. You cannot lose. You can't lose. You can't lose. You can't lose. That's the only difference between church and football, is you just can't lose. Those guys can, right? You cannot lose. And to know that you cannot lose, if you can actually believe that, dude, let me just tell you, it changes everything about the way you live your life. Everything about the way you live your life. So it's kind of like one of those things when it's not going well, when life's not going your way, when you're in a situation that is overwhelming you. How many of you get to a place where you're overwhelmed? Overwhelmed? You ever been there? How many of you are there right now? Right now. You're overwhelmed by junk. You got some junk going on. Yeah. Props to the overwhelmed people. That's where I am. Can I just be honest with you for just a second? Is it cool if I'm just Just lay it all out on the line and be a little bit transparent. Every now and then you just need some encouragement and some hope. And we need more encouragement and more hope than we actually think we need. So you get to this place where every now and then in your life, like the first half didn't go like you wanted it to go. Like you're down 14 points and you're hanging your head walking into the locker room, and you just need somebody to walk into the locker room and go give you the biggest and the best halftime speech that you've ever heard, just so you'll have enough courage and enough strength just to walk out and fight for 30 more minutes so that you can win the game. Right? You need that. You need that in your life. And listen, I need that in my life, because here's the thing. This last week has been probably the worst week that I've had in a long time. The worst week that I've had in a long time. It's like everything that I tried to do, everything that I did do, it's like I didn't do a good enough job at it. It's like, I take one step forward and 9 steps back. You ever been there before? Come on, you ever been there? Yes or no? You got to come with me. Like you take one forward and it's like you get some momentum and then something hits you and it knocks you backwards, right? And this week I had like one decision after another, and you get to a place where you have like decision-making overload, and it's so much pressure on top of you that you're just sitting there and you're going, I'm done. Right? And in those moments, you need somebody to come in and give you one of those pump-up halftime speeches just to get you going back one more time. And I'm telling you, that's what I needed this week. I came home from the building one night, and I told Cheyenne, I said, I'm done with this building. Done with it. We'll stay in the rec center. Right? Some of you are like, was he serious? Did you actually mean that? No, we're going. I'm good now. But I'm just telling you what the week looked like. Come on, you've been there too. You've been overwhelmed. You've been pressured. You've been to a place where you thought that, it's just better for me to just stop right now. If I have to deal with everything that I'm dealing with and all these things all at one time, it's just better just to stop than to keep going. Right? You've been there, and I've been there too. So I came home and I told her, I said, I'm just done with this building. Done with it. Done. And then we had a little conversation, and I got into a place. I read one verse this week on Thursday that changed the whole message. I was going a completely different direction, and then Thursday it changed and took off from one verse. And I'll read you that one verse at the very end of the message. I'm going to keep you in suspense the whole time. The whole time, because that's how it works. Cliffhangers. It works like that all the time. But you need somebody to come in that's got your back, that's got your corner, and like kicks you in the tail and just goes, you know what? You got a purpose, and God's got a plan for your life, and you better get after it, because if you don't get after it, who is going to get after it? Who's going to get after it? So I want to drop us in to the greatest halftime speeches that God gave to this guy named Joshua. So Joshua chapter 1, if you got your Bible, if not, it's going to be on the screen for you. Joshua chapter 1, starting in verse 6. So to give you some background before we just jump straight in, the nation of Israel right here is in the middle of like transition. How many of you know transition stinks? Okay, transition always stinks. It doesn't matter what you're transitioning from one job to another, always stinks. From one baby to another, from 2 babies to another. Come on, November 29th is the due date, but I have 3. I don't even know what I'm going to do. I don't even know. But that time, it's always difficult. Transition is always difficult. So the nation of Israel is going through a time of transition, and they're trying to figure out how not to be slaves anymore, because they were once slaves. Now he's bringing them out. He's kind of walking them through this process. They're figuring that out. And then it's transition in leadership from Moses to Joshua, and it's like, I don't know what to do. And then he gets to a place, Joshua does, he gets to a place where he has to lead a whole bunch of crazy, stupid idiots. Come on, can we just say that? Can we just say that up front? Some parent got your kid with you and you're like, I told you, you'd never say stupid. You don't listen to that pastor. You just never say it. But let's just be honest. When you read about the people of Israel, listen, they were dumb as a box in a rock. I'm telling you, we are those people. You get to a place where you gripe all the time, you complain all the time, and then you forget that God already brought you out of something, and you get to another place where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get past it again. He already brought you out of it one time. Why can't he do it again? Right? If he already brought you out of it then, he can do it again. So you get to this place where you're struggling with some of this stuff. And that's kind of where Joshua was. He's struggling with some stuff. And this is what God says to him. Joshua chapter 1, verse 6. It says, be strong and courageous. Now turn to your neighbor and say, be strong. Be strong. You can say it louder than that. Say, be strong. Be strong, man. Be strong. I need you to be strong. I need you to be strong and courageous. And I love this part, because you will lead these people to the land that I promised them. You will. Not, he doesn't say, hey, be strong and courageous, because maybe if you get your act together, you might be able to lead these people to where I promised them. He doesn't say that. What's he say? Before it even happens, he says, you will lead these people into the land that I promised them. Let me just tell you, whatever you're facing right now, you will get through it, right? Because you are an overcomer. You are more than conquerors. You cannot lose if you place your faith in Jesus. It doesn't matter what's got you down right now. You will get through it. And it doesn't matter how tough it is. You've been there before. You've been there before. You will get through it. And then he goes on. He says, be strong and courageous again. Now, what do you think Joshua was thinking? Probably thinking the same thing I was thinking when I read it. I was like, God, didn't you just say that? Like you just said that. Not like 10 words ago. You just said, be strong and courageous. And I'm pretty sure that Joshua was doing that same thing. God, I got it. I got it. We're good. We're good. You just said that. And God looks down and he goes, yeah, but I know you. I know you. And one little minuscule problem can pop up into your life, and it can deflate any amount of courage that you got in your heart right now. Am I right? Come on, it doesn't even have to be a big problem. You get to a place in your life where you're sitting there and you're going, man, you've dealt with this problem, this problem, this problem, and this one, and then a little one hits you, and it's just like, every bit of courage is gone. It's like he knew that about us. It's like he created us or something. And he knew that in between verse 6 and on the way to verse 7, something was going to happen that was going to take every bit of your courage away from you. Every bit of your courage. So he says it again, be strong and courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left. He's saying, hey, listen, I know life is crazy. I know you got a lot of pressure. I know you got some stuff on your plate, but don't get distracted by that, because you got a purpose to fulfill. You got a job to do. You can't get distracted by all of that stuff, because you got to do your job. Right? Isn't that football? Now, I don't know how many times I heard Nick Saban say that. I ain't worried about the end of the game and the score. If you do your job, the scoreboard will take care of itself. Right? Is that not right? How many of you played football growing up? Played football growing up? Played football? Played any sport? Come on, played any sport. Right? Keep them up. Yeah. What's the one thing in sports that you always have to do? You always have to prepare mentally. Every sport, you always got to prepare mentally. So you get into this place, and this is what he says. Don't turn to the right or to the left. Don't get distracted. Don't let it get to you, because you got a job, you got a purpose. And if you don't get distracted, you'll be successful wherever you go. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. And then he says, have I not commanded you? Does that not remind you of parenting? Does it not? Like your kids, you tell them to go clean their room like 10 times, and they still haven't cleaned their room, and you go to the side of the door and you go, have I not told you to clean your stinking room? Right? You've been there? How many of you have been there? I've been there. Been there. Have I not told you? And I can hear like the father heart of God right here, and he says, have I not told you? And then this is what he said afterwards, be strong and courageous. So in 3 times in these short amount of verses, 3 times he tells Joshua to be strong and courageous. Why do you think he's telling them that? Because he seems weak, right? And he's very discouraged. Seems weak and you're very discouraged, because you don't need somebody to come to you and say, be strong and courageous, when you're already strong and when you already got enough courage to walk into anything. You don't need that. So it tells you something about where Joshua was right here mentally and spiritually. He shows up 3 times and says, be strong and courageous. And then the very next verse is pretty much the same thing. He just worded it a little bit different. He said this, do not be afraid and do not be discouraged for the Lord. This is the reason why you don't need to be afraid and you don't need to be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. You want to know why we can't lose as followers of Jesus? Because Jesus has already overcome everything that we're going to face. And if we are with him and he is with us, then we are going to be able to overcome no matter what we come in contact with in our life. Does that make sense to you? That's where we're going. So we're about to get crazy. You ready? You ready? We're going to get fired up right here. So 3 times. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. And then he says, do not be afraid and do not be discouraged. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. And I sit there and I go, you know, I'm pretty sure that Joshua was both of these things. Pretty sure he was afraid and he was a little bit discouraged. He was discouraged because God gave him a bunch of jacked up people to lead. Right? And he was like, could I not have a better group of people, God? Right? You say that. You say that in your life. Can I not have a better family? These are jacked up, man. They got some problems. They got issues. Could I not be born into a little bit better family? Can I not have a better relationship? Could I not have better coworkers? Come on, that hit a little bit. I saw. Could I not have a little bit better? Listen, he's a little bit discouraged because of the people that he's got to lead. They're hard-headed. They're forgetful. They forget everything that God did for them. Like he's discouraged with that, and then he's afraid because God already told him what he had to do to get there. Right? He's afraid because he's going, man, I don't know. I don't know that I can lead these people. And then when I do lead these people to get them into the promised land that you showed them, like I mean, we're going to have to defeat the Jebusites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the whatever other kind of ites, the Cellulites. And you know what I'm saying? How many of you know that's the hardest one of all to defeat right there? The Cellulites. Hardest one of all, and he's looking at everything that he's got to do to be able to walk into the purpose that God has for him, and he's going, you know what, I'm a little bit afraid, and I'm a little bit discouraged. I'm a little bit afraid, and I'm a little bit discouraged. But can I tell you something really quick? It's okay to feel afraid, and it's okay to feel discouraged, because there's a difference between feeling discouraged and being discouraged. There's a difference between feeling afraid and being afraid. There's a difference between having some fear about some stuff going on in your life and fear having you. You with me? You can't even ride a roller coaster because you're sitting there going, well, I saw on the news that one day that kid got his leg chopped off and I ain't going in that thing no more. Right? And fear it's just got you bound up in your life, and you're sitting there and you're going, oh my gosh, listen, there's a difference between feeling afraid and being afraid. And God didn't say you can never feel afraid. What did he say? He said, don't be afraid and don't be discouraged, because here's the difference. One affects the way you feel and one affects who you are. One affects the way you feel and one affects who you are. You can feel afraid, and in a moment you'll have an emotional sense of fear. Like you can do that, but fear can turn into being every part of your life. You get to a place where you try something and you feel like you're not good at it. And that feeling can either, for a moment, you feel like you're not good at that, and then you try it again later, or that feeling can that feeling can become who you are, and you get to a place where you never try it again because you weren't good at it one time before. Does that make sense to you? Does that make sense at all? Right now, are you following me? You can feel afraid and not be afraid. You can feel discouraged and not be discouraged. And God says, don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. And here's what I want you to know this morning. Here's your one-liner, your message in a sentence. This is where we're going for the rest of the time this morning. If we get this, it changes our heart. Don't allow your feelings to distort your identity. Don't allow your feelings to distort your identity. Don't allow your feelings to distort your identity, because here's what happens. Your feelings start to distort who you are. I'm not good at this. Right? I feel like I can't do it. I feel like I don't have enough energy. I don't have enough gifts. I don't have enough abilities. And then those feelings distort your identity. So you're going, well, I can't do this, God, because I don't feel like I have enough abilities. I don't feel like I have enough strength. And it affects your identity and distorts it. And then it keeps you from walking into the purpose that God has planned for your life. Right? So your feelings distort your identity and keep you from walking into the purpose that God has for your life. See, God threw out a purpose to Joshua. And he says, listen, you got something to do. And you can't be afraid, and you can't be discouraged, and be strong and courageous, because if you're not, there's nobody else that's going to lead this group of people. I've chosen you. Do you get that about yourself? God has set you where you are right now to be an influencer for him, and there's nobody else better than you. Do you get that? Does that make you feel a little bit valuable? He sets you right where you are in this time, doing what you're doing, so that you can do what you're doing, because there's nobody else that can do it better than you. And Joshua just needed a little bit of encouragement, right? So don't let your feelings distort your identity, because when they distort your identity, you'll never walk into your purpose. Because here's what I want you to know. The one thing that keeps us from walking into the purpose that God has for our lives isn't our abilities and our gifts and our talents. They're not that. They're not that. The ability to walk into your purpose is only defined by your willingness to talk your mind into whether or not it's possible. And that's what keeps most of us from walking into the purpose that God has for us. Not because we're not good at it, not because we think that we're weak and we don't have what it takes. The reason that most of us don't walk into the purpose that God has for us is because we can't talk our mind into actually believing that we can do it. Because you're always harder on yourself than you are on anybody else. Right? So God says, man, here's my purpose for you. Here's my plan for you. And you're sitting there and you're going, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And it's not about your abilities. It's about your willingness to talk your mind into actually believing that if God said you could do it, that you actually can do it. So Joshua's in this place and he's like, man, I don't know. I'm struggling. But here's what's funny about this whole situation that we read right here is that Joshua was actually in this situation like 40 years earlier. Right, this ain't the first time he's been here. He's been here before. Look to your neighbor and say, I've been here before. I've been here before. I've been in this situation before. I've gone through these circumstances before. I've dealt with this situation before, and I've come out the other side of it. Listen, Joshua isn't in this situation for the very first time. He was in the same situation 40 years earlier. 40 years earlier. And here's what I want you to see. Go to Numbers chapter 13. I want to show you this, where he was at 40 years earlier. 40 years earlier. Right? Moses was still in charge. Moses was the leader, and Joshua was under him. And in Moses' mind, he got to a place where he was like, you know what? We're going to go into this land, but I need some people to go into this land and tell me what it looks like. Like, are we able to get there? Like, can we actually accomplish that? Can we go in and actually win? So he sent 12 guys, right? 12 guys. Some of you may know this story. 12 guys into this land, says, report back to me everything that you see in the land. Let me know what it looks like, and then we'll make a decision on whether or not to go in there or not, right? And Joshua was one of the 12, right? But what's interesting to me is how some of those 12 come back and what they say to Moses, right? So I want you to look at this. Numbers 13, verse 31. It says, but some of the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. We can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. So they had the whole mind wrapped around, we can't do it because they're stronger than we are. So they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. Come on, somebody. They're great. Those big dudes. They're big dudes. Let me tell you, me and Dad went to an Alabama game yesterday, and we walked up to Denny Chimes, and, you know, how many of you Bama fans in here? Okay, so we walk up to Denny Chimes, and you probably don't have anything like this in Auburn, but we have like all the captains and stuff like that, like their handprints and the footprints all in the concrete and all that stuff, and we're just walking around, just kind of checking them out, and you know, you're comparing your feet to their feet. You know what I'm saying? You're comparing your hand to their hands, and I'm seeing some dudes that I'm like, yeah, that's about my size. That's good. And then I walk over to one, and I'm telling you, I look like a 4-year-old in the footsteps of a grown man. Like I wear an 11, and I'm pretty sure this dude wore like a 22 and a half. Like I'm not sure. And then I put my hand down on the handprint, and I'm telling you, it's like this much more above that. And I'm going, dude, those are some big dudes. How many of you would love to get hit by one of those dudes? No. I ain't doing that. That's why I quit football in the 10th grade, because you had those big dudes. I ain't want anything to do with that, right? I don't want to get hit by those people. So you have this group of people coming back, and they're going, Moses, those big dudes. Like, I ain't doing that. We can't attack them. Now, here's what I want you to know about their response, is half of their response was true. Half of it. But the other half wasn't. Look at the part that wasn't true. The verse says, we can't attack those people. That wasn't true. We can't attack those people. But you know what was true? They were stronger than they were. They were bigger than they were. Let me tell you something about your feelings. Your feelings only tell you half the truth. Your feelings only tell you half the truth. They'll tell you, man, I feel like I'm not good at this. I feel like I'm incapable of making this happen. I feel like this. But let me just tell you, when Jesus Christ is in you, when you have given your life to Him, it doesn't matter what you feel, you will always be an overcomer. It doesn't matter what you go through. It doesn't matter how you feel. Your feelings they don't get to a place where they determine your outcome if you don't let them. You get to a place where man, my feelings can attack my identity, and if my identity is attacked, then it leads me to not walking into the purpose and the plan that God has for my life. Are you getting this? This is huge. This is huge. Don't let your feelings distort your identity, because there's only one person who is able to tell you who you actually are, and it is not you. It's the God who created you. And at the beginning said you are loved, and you are cherished, and you are strong, and you're my kid. And you can do it. Right? So don't let your feelings distort your identity. And in this moment, that's what these people are doing. They're like, I ain't going up there. You see how big these dudes are? No. And their feelings of how big these dudes are, and their feelings of we're not going to win this battle, their feelings of I'm going to die in here, is getting to a place where it's keeping them from walking into their promise. Not that they don't have the ability to do it. Not that they don't have the weapons to fight them. Not that they can't do it. What's keeping them from walking into the purpose is their ability to talk their mind into actually believing that it's possible. And then Joshua speaks up. I love Joshua's response. I love it because it's a stark contrast to what the other guys say. Look at Numbers chapter 14. Numbers chapter 14, verse 6. Joshua looks at Moses and he says, listen, I don't know what these dudes are talking about, but the land we walked through and scouted out was very good land. It was very good indeed. If God is pleased with us, He will lead us into that land. Do you notice that? He will lead us into that land. Not He might. Listen, I need you to get that. I need you to get that. Listen, you're not overcomers when you actually get out of the situation that you're in right now. You're already overcomers in the middle of the situation that you're in. Right? You're already that. That's your identity. But when you get your feelings to distort your identity, you believe that you're not an overcomer when you're still in the situation that you're in. Even though you're in the situation that you're in, you're still an overcomer because your identity is not based on your feelings, it's based on what God said you were to begin with. You got me so far? And Joshua keeps on going. He says He will lead us into that land. Now let me tell you something about the building, and this is where I was this week. And I hope you can handle like the honesty. But I came home this week after dealing with some junk up there, and I came home and I told Cheyenne, I said, I'm done with this building. I'm done with it. I'm done because it's not worth it. Whatever we're facing, whatever we're dealing with, you got that pressure, you got this pressure, you got this one, you got that one over there, and I come to the place in my life, like physically, mentally, and spiritually, where I was done. I was just done. I was done. I was like, something's got to give. Something's got to give. And I looked at Cheyenne and I go, man, I don't know. I can't do it anymore. I'm done with that building. We'll just stay at the rec center the whole time. And I read this verse, and it says, and He will give it to us. Do you know what the land had in it? The land had big, strong dudes. Like big, strong, scary, monster-looking type guys that these people were afraid to walk into. You know what I'm saying? Listen, you know what every purpose has in it? Every purpose has some big, strong dudes. Every purpose has some giants that you have to face to be able to walk in to the purpose that God's given you. So I got into this place after I read this and after I worked through it a little bit. How many of you know pastors got to work through junk too? How many of you know we probably more jacked up than you are? We are, because we got to deal with you all the time. Like that's the thing that that's funny. To get to a place in your life where you're working through some junk, and I'm working through how I feel and all this stuff that's going on, and I get to a place in my heart and in my mind where I go, you know what, God will give it to us. God will give it to us. We're going to walk into that stinking building, and we're going to have service in there, and people are going to come to know Jesus in there, and their eternities are going to be changed forever. And not only is it going to happen in Enterprise, it's going to happen all over the world because of what God's doing right here. God will give it to us. And then Joshua kept on going, and he says this. He said, it's a land that flows with milk and honey. How many of you know when we get into the building, it's going to flow with some milk and some honey? It's going to be good. We ain't going to have to set up and tear down all the time. Come on. Right? Some of you don't know what that means because you're not on the set up and tear down team. But here's what I do know. Anybody who serves on the set up and tear down team, they are stinking pumped right now. Oh, you telling me I ain't got to get to the church at 7:30 in the morning? I don't have to stay there until 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Do you know that people do that so that you can have a place to come to church, so that you can meet Jesus without any barriers in the way? Do you know that people do that for you? Listen, I'm telling you, you come to a great church with a bunch of people that love you enough to stay here from 7:30 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon just to make a place for you to come. And we ain't going to have to do that anymore. Right? We ain't going to have to do that anymore. I'm not going to have to rush you out of this place all the time because we got to tear down and break down and get out of here by 2 o'clock. Listen, I want to talk to you. I want to get to know you, but I'll see you next week. Right? That's what I feel like we do every single Sunday. Right? And you walk into a building, we're going to have a building that's flowing with milk and honey. We're going to be able to stand in the lobby and kind of sit down and have a cup of coffee and chit-chat back and forth and figure out who you are and what's going on. And man, I'm dealing with that same stuff too. This is what I deal with that. You're dealing with that too. How did you get over that stuff? We're going to be able to sit there and have relationships in the new building. It will flow with milk and honey. So even though the pressures was telling me that I wanted to quit and I felt like I couldn't handle it anymore, God kind of went, boom! Get up, get over it, because you got a job to do, you got a purpose to fulfill, and you got to get a place where people can come to know who I am in the city of Enterprise and make it as easy as it possibly can. And it doesn't matter what I go through to get there. All I know is I just got to get there. I just got to get there. And listen, I don't know what you're going through. But you're probably going through some junk as well. But here's what I know. You just got to get there. You just got to get to the end, man. You can't quit right now. You just got to keep going. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. Here's the deal. Our feelings can't get in the way to distort our identity, because when it distorts our identity, we lose our victory. I'll say that one more time for you. We can't let our feelings distort our identity, because when it distorts our identity, we lose our victory. Are you hearing me? With that, because your victory only comes from your identity. And your identity, when it's rooted in Christ, Jesus defeated the grave, he defeated death, and he rose, and he's sitting at the right hand of the Father, which allows you to be victorious in anything that you face. Come on. Now, I know what you're thinking, because I was thinking the same thing this week. Well, I don't feel victorious. Come on, how many of you felt that way before? You ever felt that way before? Like, God's the God of the immeasurably more. Well, I don't see immeasurably more. You know, God's the God of healing your marriage. Well, right now, it doesn't look like it's going to be healed. You know what I'm saying? And your feelings start to get to a place where they distort your identity. Your identity is placed in the person of Jesus Christ. And when you're placed in the person of Jesus Christ, you are already victorious, even in the middle of your sufferings. Because here's the deal. We only think we're victorious when we're out of our situations. Just wait on that one too, because apparently that one was heavy for you. We only think that we're victorious when we're already out of the situation that we've gone through. So we go through it, we deal with it, we get out of it, and we go, yeah, victorious. Boom. But while we're in it, we're going, dude, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. What did you tell your neighbor a while ago? I've been here before. I've been here before. Did you come out of it before? Yes, you'll come out of it again. You'll come out of it again. Listen, I'm telling you, I don't know if you're being able to handle some of the stuff about your pastor getting kicked in his tail by God this week. Like, I don't know if you're being able to handle this because your energy level isn't quite to where your energy level needs to be, because your energy level will be higher if you actually believe that you can't lose no matter what situation you go through. Like, you would actually say something back like, mm-hmm. You know, like it would get inside of you, and it would change your identity, because your identity before was placed in your feelings, because you're going, I can't do this. I feel bad. I feel like I'm struggling. I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like this. I feel like this. And it distorts your identity. But the moment that you say my identity isn't in my feelings, it's in my Jesus, is the moment that you're able to walk into whatever life throws your way, and you're going, listen, even if God didn't send it, he can use it to send me into my purpose. He can use it. He can use it. And now we're getting to the good part. So Romans 8:37. I want you to check this out for just a second. Romans 8:37. This is the one verse that I read this week that sparked the whole thing. Romans 8:37. It says, "No, in all things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. You know what a conqueror is? It's a person who conquers stuff. That's Webster's definition of a conqueror. It's a person who conquers stuff. So it'd be cool. How many of you would love to conquer some stuff? You got some situations in your life that you'd love to conquer? Yeah. Well, here's the cool thing. The Bible says you're more than that. You're more than conquerors. Don't you love that? You're more than conquerors through him who loved you. You're more than overcomers. You're more than victorious. You're more than everything that you could be. You are more than conquerors through him who loves us. Not after you get out of your situation, but even in the middle of your situation. Is that not what the verse says? That's still verse on the screen for you? What's it say? No, what's the next word? In all these things. In all what things? In all that junk that you're going through right now, in all that relationship drama, in all that financial stress, in all that work stress, in all that stuff that you're sitting there, you're going, man, I'm not good enough. It's in all that stuff that God says, hey, this is my purpose for your life, and you're sitting there and going, I'm not capable of doing that. Listen, you are more than conquerors, even when you're in the middle of a situation. Your situation doesn't have to be over yet. It doesn't have to have an outcome yet, because the outcome has already come 2,000 years ago when Jesus raised himself from the grave, and he's sitting at the right hand of the Father. Listen, you don't have to be done with your situation to be an overcomer of your situation. And that's why your feelings can't distort your identity. Because once they distort your identity, it keeps you from walking into the purpose that God has for your life. So I read this verse, and I sat there and I went, you know what? It doesn't matter what I'm feeling. I mean, essentially, it doesn't matter what I'm feeling. Because my feelings don't define who I am. My relationship with Jesus defines who I am. Come on, I'm just being transparent with you for just a second about what I struggle with this week. It doesn't matter what I feel, because my feelings only tell me half the truth. My feelings were telling me you're not good enough to handle this. My feelings were telling me that you don't have enough strength to get through what you're going through. My feelings were telling me if this building is affecting every other relationship and every other stress and every other thing, then that building isn't worth it. But let me tell you something, that building is worth it. That building's worth it. And I remember that conversation with me and Cheyenne. That building's worth it. It's worth it. Because in the middle of the stresses, the way I'm feeling is distorting my identity. And I don't feel like I can walk into the purpose that God has for my life because I'm focused on my feelings. And they only tell me half the truth, when in reality, God says, I placed you in this place for a specific purpose and for a specific reason. And if you don't do what I've called you to do, then there are going to be people who are dying and going to hell because you didn't do what you needed to do, because they didn't hear the life-giving message of Jesus. Does that weigh on you a little bit? It weighs on me a little bit. And that tells me that I can't quit, man. I can't. I got to keep going. I got to go. We got to go hard. Listen, you can't quit. You can't quit right now on your marriage. You can't quit right now giving because your finances aren't as good as what they was. You can't quit. You can't quit coming and serving. You can't. You can't. If we lose people coming and serving at this church, then we lose the reputation we have in this city. Because you know what people say when they walk in the door? That's the friendliest church I've ever been in my life. That's because you got people serving at the front door, in the parking lot, all the way through, and everybody's just as jacked up as you are, and we know it. Listen, you can't quit serving. Because save people, serve people. And let me just tell you, serve people, save people. What, did you say that? Boom, added something onto that. That was good. That was good. Save people, serve people. But when you serve people, you're in the process of saving people. Listen, you can't stop right now. You can't stop. No matter what you're in right now, you are more than conquerors. You are more than conquerors. Turn to your neighbor and say, I'm a conqueror. Come on, you got to say it louder than that, man. Come on, I'm a conqueror. I mean, I'm going to overcome this thing. I'm going to make it. We're going to do it. It doesn't matter what we're going through right now. All I know is that I got to go after Jesus, and I got to go after him as hard as I can go after him, because everything in my purpose depends on how hard I go after Jesus. And it all depends on whether or not you can talk your mind into believing that it's actually possible. So here's what I want us to do to close. It's going to be really awkward and really weird, but you can get over it. It's fine. I want you to just stand just right where you are. Just right where you are, right where you are, right where you are. And here's what I want you to do. I just want you to put your hand in. Come on. Doesn't this feel like a locker room talk? Doesn't it feel like a halftime speech? Go on, just put your hand in. It feels weird. Everybody's doing it. Whatever. It's fine. If everybody's doing it, you might as well do it. Ain't that what the Bible says? No, it's not what the Bible says. Put your hand in. Here's what I want to ask you real quick, just looking at you in the face. What would you do for God if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do for God if you knew you couldn't fail? Do you feel the locker room? Do you smell it yet? What would you do for God if you knew you couldn't fail? Because if you actually believe that you can't lose, and if you actually believe that you are more than conquerors, then there is nothing in your life, if you follow the path that Jesus is leading you down, that you can't conquer by yourself living a life through Jesus. Does that make sense to you? There is nothing that can overcome you. You cannot lose. You cannot lose. You cannot lose. So, what would you do for God if you knew that you wouldn't fail? Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to leave today, and I just want you to do it. Start it. Start it today. If it's something that's going to take a while, just start it today. I'm going to leave today. What would you do for God if you knew you couldn't fail? Because the truth of the matter is you are more than conquerors, and you cannot fail. You cannot lose. You cannot lose. What would you do today? What would you do if you knew that you could not fail? And here's how we're going to end today. You ready? Here's how we're going to end. You're like, yeah, my shoulder's like burning right now. So come on with it. Here's how we're going to end. You ready? On the count of 3, we're just going to say, just do it. We got to give Nike some props. You know what I'm saying? Like Nike, video cameras running. Nike, we love you. It's awesome. Here we go. On the count of 3, we're just going to say, just do it. Right? What could you do today? What would you do if you knew that you couldn't fail? On the count of 3, just do it. 1, 2, 3, just do it!